Hello everybody, today I'm going to be teaching you how to get VSTs and effects into FL Studio. Now first, we should explore what the difference is between the sound font player and a VST. So to do that, I'm going to bring up Fruity Sound Font Player. There we go. And then I'm going to bring up an instrument called Harmor. Now Harmor, like all of these instruments here, are built into FL Studio. They come with FL Studio. And each one of them has a different GUI. See, look at this. That's a lot of buttons. But the point is not that you're not supposed to understand all of these buttons just yet. The point is that there's a unique GUI for Harmor that's different than that of the Fruity Sound Font player. And if I were to bring up a different instrument, such as Wasp XT, there's yet another different GUI. This is usually the case for all VSTs. Each one of them has their own GUI that makes it easier to use. And that's kind of what's pretty nice about them, I guess. And they can do a lot of more generating audio than just using a simple audio file. For example, this, instead of using a wave or anything like that, it generates the audio it produces. Same with Harmor. So that's kind of the difference between VSTs and sound fonts. Now, how do you get one into FL Studio for the first time? Now, by default, FL Studio comes with a few directories that are designed for you to place these resources into. You don't have to use them. I don't use them, but most people do. But I'm going to show you. But the process for adding them is pretty simple, and it's the same no matter what directory you put it in. So let's say you just got it off of the website. You just downloaded it. You open the RAR or whatever it is, and you find a DLL file. That's the main part of the VST. If there's other folders, then you should probably make an all-encompassing folder with the name of the VST, and then put all of it, everything in the RAR, in that folder. Now, what's kind of neat about FL Studio is you can add your very own directories. So, more plugins, manage plugins, and if you look over to the left, here's a lot of my directories. You can see that there are a few ones that are already listed. You can put your VSTs in there, or you can put one in an easier to reach folder that you've made on your own, like I have. See, and there you just search for the folder using this simple browser. So that's how you add your directory, and once you have the DLL file in that folder, like so, see, you can see that I have a lot of DLLs. But how do you get this inside? And that's where scanning comes in. You can scan, and then it'll find all of the new .dlls in your folder. You can see it's scanning all of them right now, and it's skipping past them because it already knows they exist. And it looks like it found a new thing. So that's kind of neat. Now, once it's in, how do you add it? Because these are built into FL Studio, and they were not external things that I added. To do that, you go to Open Plugin Picker. Nah, well, you might be able to do it that way, but More Plugins is where you want to go. And then you just simply search up the name of the VST you want. I'm going to choose BR808. Yet again, there's a lot of buttons. You're going to have to be used to a lot of buttons. And I don't know if you can hear that. It's kind of faint. But yeah, now you've got it in. You can play it with the keys. So there you go. And the process for adding effects is very similar to that of adding VSTs. You pretty much do it the exact same way. When I get the DLL for an effect, I put it in the same folder as my VSTs, because the only difference is in how you add it. So let's make things a bit simpler. I'm going to get out the Earthbound sound font. Pretty versatile sound font. Now, the billion-dollar question is, how do you get effects in here? And that's where you go to View and then Mixer. Even more buttons. That's a lot of buttons. Now, I want you to pay attention to these numbers over here. These numbers refer to these numbers on the mixer. And these are the effect channels for each instrument. You can route the same you can route different channels to the same mixer track, or you can route them all to their own unique track if you wanted to. Heck, you can make one over here and then route a bunch of mixer tracks to that track and then bring it over to the master. But that's kind of complicated. Let's just figure out how to get effects in. And that's where these come in. You just click here, More Plugins, and I'm going to get a kind of goofy little effect here called Filter Jam. It's meant to make things sound a bit weird. You can see as I drag this little knob around, it makes things kind of strange. And I always love randomize buttons, because I'm quite lazy. FL Studio has a lot of built-in effects too, and the most useful of these, I think, would be Maximus, the Fruity Compressor, and the Parametric Equalizer. The rest of them, you kind of have to know what you're doing to use. So, a compressor, basically, it's a way of making things louder or softer without kind of being like way too peaking or anything like that. See, I've noticed this with BR808. Whenever I go to its GUI, the FL Studio kind of pauses because it's such an extensive GUI. Even though it's not like all colorful like Harmor or anything. So that's kind of weird. It just depends on the VST, I guess. So I'm gonna get, let's see, I'm gonna get a really powerful one called Synth 1. Really powerful VST. A little less buttons than Harmor, so it's kind of a nice place to start. And I'm gonna get out like that. It's kind of like Inception. Whoa. Now, this compressor isn't doing anything because it's in channel 1 in the mixer, which means it's only going to affect this earthbound piano and not any of this. So I can remove that and put a compressor here instead. What I've noticed is that this effect that I've made for Synth 1 is kind of very loud, and it kind of drowns out everything else. So what I can do is I can change the threshold in this compressor and bring up the ratio. And now it's a lot quieter. And that's what makes compressors so useful. You can use them to basically dictate how loud you want something to be without it being so overruling. Like, if I wanted to, I could just drag this down and make it quieter that way. But with this, it kind of has like a delay to it and stuff like that. And that's what makes it really, really integral to making music. So you can kind of like add like this delay. So if you want it to be a little bit loud at the start, you can do that. So yeah. And then Maximus, it's kind of like 3 different compressors in one. And they're all meant for 3 different ranges. So let's say I want to bring up the bass and bring everything else down. So that's also very useful for if you just want to tackle a few different frequencies in an instrument. You can see it's kind of got like this. It tells you what it's doing to the input and stuff like that. The purple, I think, is the output. And then the other most useful effect that I can think of is probably the parametric equalizer, which I think I have the most difficulty with. Because what this basically is it allows you to change how loud different frequencies are for your instrument or your track or whatever it is. It's kind of less obvious with this one, so I'm going to change it to a different instrument. Yeah, that's got a few clearly defined different frequencies here. And you can change the type of these little knobs. So you can change them to like a band stop. What it does is it kind of eliminates the audio in that area. And you can save them. You can save the presets just like any other instrument. So that's kind of the gist of adding effects. So yeah. Also another effect that's kind of useful is reverb. And what that does, it's kind of obvious. It makes things kind of echo. So you can kind of detect like an echoey difference in there. So yeah, that's how you add VSTs and effects into FL Studio.